Hello everybody, this is Tim here again, here with another video. This time I'm going to finally get started on my Snyder Cut commentary for the movie. And this will obviously be split into parts this time, unlike the other two, which are pretty much just full commentaries. I'm going to split this one into parts, just for people that may like to listen, or who are going to listen, to make it easier on them because it'll be in parts. And also, of course, to make it easier on myself because this is a much longer movie than either of the previous two Zack Snyder DC movies. So we'll see how far I'll make it with this part one of my commentary for this movie, and then I guess we'll just go from there. So, without further ado, if you want to link up, if you got a copy of the movie, if you're watching on HBO Max, we'll probably just do like the first chapter here. So, let's get started. In 1, 2, 3, play. Okay, we got the HBO Max logo coming up. A Max original. Warner Brothers Tower. Yeah, I've waited a little while to do the commentary for this one, or to get started on doing the commentary for this one, mostly because I was just real busy with other stuff, honestly, and I was not really sure how I exactly wanted to do this commentary for this one, because this is such a much longer movie than the other two, compared to Man of Steel and, of course, Batman vs. Superman. We got the DC logo coming up here, which is pretty cool, with all the different characters and things like that. It's kind of neat. It's got a cool factor to it. Yeah. I'm a little tired right now, I'll be honest, but this movie's gonna juice me up. Yeah, we're getting into the Snyder Cut. I still call it the Snyder Cut, even though it pretty much reads as Zack Snyder's Justice League. I still like to call it the Snyder Cut, to be honest. That's what I'm used to kind of calling it. Really like how this one's picking up pretty much from like directly at the climax of Batman vs. Superman. Really cool, of course, seeing different angles of Superman's death and all that. Just really well shot here. Definitely a Zack Snyder style opening. Most people seem to enjoy the Snyder Cut. Like, I haven't seen much complaining even from like DC fans who aren't Snyder fans. Most of them seem to like this one. Like with Man of Steel, I really didn't get like why some people didn't like that one. That is, even if you like don't like Zack Snyder as a director or his style, that's a totally fine, enjoyable Superman movie. Batman vs Superman I can kind of get because it does pretty much go away from the comics in a lot of ways. But as a Zack Snyder film, I do think it's a masterpiece. But as like a DC film, the Ultimate Cut I think is just good. I still like it. As a DC film, but as a Zack Snyder film, I think it's a masterpiece. It's like an Elseworld movie. I think it's a masterpiece. This is much more in line with the comics and things like that. So I'd be surprised if anyone didn't really like this one. And it seems most people are really enjoying it. It's gotten mostly praise, even from critics that seem to really like it, or at least enjoy it for the most part. This whole opening with like Superman's like godlike scream, like traveling like a sonic wave through every place and all that. It's pretty cool. Very well shot and a neat idea. Yeah, I did that video not too long ago about not wanting to support Warner Brothers like DC movies and properties and things like that or whatever. And I still stand by that. I'm not gonna like pay to see new DC movies that's in the DC film universe just because of how they've like treated Zack Snyder and everybody. It's just really rubbing me the wrong way. And I know it's a company and these kind of things do happen, but at the same time, Warner Brothers just took it too far with how they've treated Zack Snyder and David Ayer and all that by hacking up their stuff and refusing to release their original cuts, and how much effort we've had, the fans and everybody have had to put in to get them released. They just took it way too far with all the craziness and just the way they treat fans. Like, if they weren't so toxic towards fans as well as how they've acted towards the directors, then I wouldn't feel as strongly about it. We got Lex Luthor there. Yeah, I like how this links up really well. Steppenwolf. I like how they went back to Steppenwolf's like original Zack Snyder design on this, of course, for this Snyder Cut. Much cooler look than what we got in the theatrical cut. Like, I know some people like really hated the theatrical cut look. I don't hate it. He looks okay. He's fine, but he loses that badass like cool quality that he has in this this Snyder version. He just looks much cooler. in this Zack Snyder one. And I love like how his armor like shimmers and stuff like that, and kind of changes and things. It lets you know that the special effects like creators paid attention to what was going on and how his armor should like reflect light and stuff like that in certain scenes and all that. It makes it feel like a character of itself. It just adds a little extra dimension to it. Got Amber Heard as Mira. I will say this: I do not like Amber Heard's like British accent in this one. I prefer her more normal sounding voice in Aquaman. Like Amber Heard as an actor, she's not very good, and when you try to get her to like stretch beyond her limitations of like doing like a British accent or whatever, it's pretty bad to be honest. But she worked well in the Aquaman movie. I liked her there. I didn't mind her. I thought she was totally fine. Nothing about her has ever like blown me away or anything. Though I don't think she's a good actor at all. Even like looking past all the Johnny Depp stuff, I've never thought she's a good actor. Some of the CGI shots in this are a little off, but nothing too bad. And that's just because, of course, this was kind of rushed to completion with given the extra $70 million to kind of get it out there and all that. But there's nothing in here that's really bad. I'll take the effects in this way over the theatrical version. We got all the Amazons lining up. Still got the cast list coming out. I've heard some people complain about the Zack Snyder like use of slow motion in this. Well, not really people complaining, but some like websites or whatever have kind of like pointed it out. Like they try to do that as like a little funny nitpick thing at Snyder or whatever. But really, this is a 4-hour movie. There's only like really a few slow motion shots in it. I didn't really even notice them to be bothered by them. I don't know, like the only scene that really kind of bothered me with the slow motion was the Flash scene. It didn't really bother me. It's just kind of like a nitpick. I just felt like it could have been sped up just a little bit. Other than that, slow motion in this movie, I never had a problem with really at all. Maybe the Aquaman scene where he's like walking down the dock, that also could have been sped up just a little bit. But other than those two tiny little moments, like the Flash and Aquaman thing, I didn't really notice it. I mean, yeah, there's the like singing thing or whatever with all the women and the chicks like sniffing Aquaman's shirt or whatever. That probably could have been cut, but this is more like a director's cut, not really what we would have gotten theatrical wise with Snyder. This is like Snyder's director's cut, so in a way, we are kind of blessed with getting this cut, at least getting it, because we probably wouldn't have gotten this extended like director's cut top 4-hour movie even if he would have stayed on the project. So in a way, it's still pretty cool to be getting this version at all. As far as like Zack Snyder continuing the DCEU goes, like if he comes out and he's like, yeah, I kind of want to move on and stuff like that, I would support that, and I would probably be willing to go back and watch like Warner Brothers products and things like that again, like their DC movies, or pay for them. I mean, like, I'm still going to watch them. I'm just not really going to pay for them. The ones that I'm interested in, I'm going to watch. That's in terms of like the DCEU though. Like eventually when they do another reboot, like if I'm still alive by then I'll be willing and okay to pay for them and things like that. Because it'll be a whole new franchise. And that's nothing like a mark. It's not a knock or anything on like the new directors and other directors who are doing their own stuff. They're just wanting to do their own movies and things like that and their own visions, and that's totally fine and understandable. I don't have anything against them or whatever. They can do what they want, but at the same time, there has to be a line drawn eventually, and I just cannot support this studio, at least when it comes to their DC movies. Because it sends the wrong message to tell them to move away from Zack Snyder, really. When they should be trying to restore the Snyderverse, especially since with all the good press and all that this movie, Snyder Cut, has gotten from critics and fans, and even haters who've liked it. Like, DCU is kind of still struggling. Like, they've had a couple, like, billion-dollar hits, but compared to Marvel, they are really still struggling. They need this momentum from the Snyder Cut. They could really use it. But instead, it feels like Warner Brothers just like, nah, we'll be fine with that, or they think they will. So that's pretty much the epilogue. Now we got part 1, which is pretty cool. So we're at part 1, not epilogue, prologue. We got the prologue, now we're at part 1. Pretty much, I guess I'll watch up until part 2, and then I'll call it a day. And then I'll wait till sometime later to do a commentary for part 2, and then part 3, part 4, and so on and so forth, till we finish the movie. Got Aquaman, Jason Momoa. His eyes, like, look great here. It's been a while since I've seen Aquaman, but his eyes, like, got, like, the contact type look or whatever in them, like they do in this movie. I can't remember. Got all the villagers. Ben Affleck. I will say this. I've heard some people say that they kind of miss, like, that rugged, like, take no prisoners kind of Batman thing or whatever that he had going in Batman vs. Superman. I can see why. Like that kind of a whole psychotic Batman, Frank Miller thing, or whatever they had in that movie, did feel kind of unique for the Batman character because it was something that hadn't really been done yet. He was cooler in that movie than he is here. Here he's more just like standard Batman. I'm the leader, helping people out, getting Justice League together. And that makes sense with his character arc, and I think it works here in this film, and I have no problem with it. He's still my favorite Batman. But I will say he was more interesting in Batman vs. Superman character-wise than he is here. The meeting of Aquaman and Batman. I'm honestly surprised that it took us this long to even like get to a Justice League movie. Like, really, DC characters being so well known, you probably could have done a Justice League movie like even earlier than waiting till like Marvel did like the whole MCU thing. You probably could have just like jumped straight into like a Justice League movie, and I think it still could have worked. But I am happy with the Zack Snyder one that we did get here with the Snyder cut. Like when the theatrical cut of Justice League came out, I watched it and I was able to look past like the bad CGI. Yeah, it was there, but as a movie, I was able to have like a good time with it when I first watched it because I was like, well, this is a fine like Super Friends type family film. It's not what I wanted or not what I felt like I was going to get after the Zack Snyder movies. It didn't feel logically built up to. This didn't feel like where they was going. And then once I started watching it more, I just kind of liked the movie less and less. And then when I finally saw this Snyder cut, I'm like, wow. Watching this now, this original version compared to the theatrical cut, it's like, dang, boss, it's like night and day. It's like the theatrical cut is really bad compared to this. And it's not me saying that I'm against like a lighthearted, more lighthearted take on like the Justice League and things like that. I'm not. Like, if you want to do a more lighthearted DC movie or whatever, I'm fine with that if that's what you want to go for. Like, if you want to do like a throwback to Super Friends or that kind of more old school type DC thing or whatever, that's cool. If that's what you want to do, I'm fine with that as long as it's done well. I just feel like, from what I've seen from both movies, that obviously this Snyder cut, slightly darker version somewhat, is just better told, better executed, better acted, better put together, better written. It's just all around better than the more lighthearted fluff version we got with the Whedon theatrical cut. And honestly, yeah, Whedon probably could have done a better job. He would have done the movie from the ground up. But we got what we got, and this is Snyder cut is what should have been released, because, like, logically, after the theatrical cut was made, the studio should have been like, let's release this original Snyder cut right off the bat. That's one of the problems with Warner Brothers. It seems like their egos are like really huge, and they just don't want to admit they screwed up on something, and then try to fix it by releasing the real version of a movie. Like, there's a lot of other studios that would kill for like the super supportive like Snyder type fan base, to where they could do like these types of movies and release them and get all the extra fan love and all that. There's other studios that would kill for this. But Warner Brothers just seems to just want to just like throw it all away, and they just feel like they can rebuild the DCEU and get like the whole mainstream and all that on their side without the core fan base. Maybe they can. Maybe their new direction is going to win the mainstream over and get them on their sides like they are for the Marvel films. Maybe they will. But at the same time, you're taking a really big chance when you literally have like a gold mine already with the foundation set up by the Snyder Cut. And even like the Air Cut that you could release, which is also obviously better than the theatrical cut of Suicide Squad, obviously. So they could easily build off the foundation of those alternate cuts in the movies that they honestly should have released to begin with. But they just seem to want to piss it away and take a chance on this new direction. But it's such a like a risk. Like, what if their new direction like doesn't work and people reject it in favor of wanting like the whole Snyder Cut thing back and all that, or the Snyder thing? Like, even if they were to make like a new movie, a new DC movie in this new direction that is good, and then they automatically follow it up with like 2 that sucks really bad, then that's just killed the whole new foundation and new direction for what they're going for right there, right off the bat, pretty much. So it's awful risky, is what I'm saying. From a business standpoint, it's a huge risk, and it seems like just like an ego thing that they're just wanting to do because they just don't want to admit that Snyder was right and they were wrong, that his version of the film is superior. Got Ben Affleck and Jeremy Irons here walking around, Alfred and Batman. I will say this, like Michael Caine is still probably my favorite version of Alfred, but I really do like this more kind of gruff, militaristic feeling type Alfred or whatever that fits really well with Ben Affleck's Batman. I really like what Jeremy Irons does with the character here in these movies, even though he is more of a background thing in this one. And I heard some people like complain about that. I'm like, he's Alfred. Alfred doesn't need to be like a front and more centered character in a friggin' Justice League movie. You don't need that. I will say this: the first little bit of the movie, maybe in like the first chapter, is a little too slow paced as it goes along. But once the story kind of kicks in, you really get into it and start going along with what's going on screen and really get into it. Not that you're against it or whatever to start with. It's just that, of course, when you got more of the build-up of the characters and story and everything, you're going to feel more taking your time to get into it and things like that, more relaxed. And then when you're like, it really kicks in, you're like, oh man, I gotta see what happens next. I want to see what happens next. It just blows you away. You just really want to see what's going on. I will say this, in terms of like new videos and stuff like that, after I'm done with this Snyder Cut commentary, which will probably take a few days because this is a 4-hour movie and I got to do it in chapters. Maybe I'll speed through it. I have no idea. I don't really know. But I will say this, after I'm kind of done with the whole Snyder Cut commentary, I'll probably go back and finish the Nightmare on Elm Street movies, do the commentary for those. Probably take a break for a little bit because Snyder Cut will probably take a little while. And then after that, get back to finally getting into doing the commentaries for the Nightmare on Elm Street movies that I've been wanting to do for a while. Did the first movie and just kind of left off. I think it was like a year ago maybe when I did part 1. I really want to do that commentary for part 2 because that's one hell of a weird one. But yeah, we got pretty much Metropolis here with the giant like Superman banner thing hanging down or whatever. They still miss the guy and all that because they're honoring him because he's like the hero of the planet. We got these guys coming in here. We're going to do the terrorist mission. I will say this: the terrorist mission makes a little more sense here logically in the context of the movie, but at the same time, it's still a little thrown together. It still feels a little slightly underdeveloped, is what I'm saying, because it's just like, well, these are just kind of crazy guys who just want to send a message against civilization or whatever. It does feel a little just like rote in that way of just like putting them in there or whatever, but the scene just has much more impact and plays a lot better here in this cut than it did in the theatrical cut. Another thing, Snyder related, I'm really excited for Army of the Dead. That trailer was really good. Looked like a great fun, just like B-movie action zombie flick. Looked really enjoyable. And it's cool to see Batista in the lead. I think he really fits that movie. And fits the tone of what Zack Snyder's going for with that one. If you don't know, Army of the Dead was like pretty much the script that was written to be like the sequel to his Dawn of the Dead remake, but it kept getting delayed for different reasons. And originally it was going to be made by the guy who directed the remake of The Thing, But it was like at the last minute the studio backed out because I believe they felt like it'd be too expensive to like shoot in Vegas or whatever. So it pretty much just kept getting delayed until eventually now Warner Brothers sold the rights to Netflix and they did the movie. But the script has been rewritten to be like a standalone zombie film now and to be its own thing instead of being a sequel to Dawn of the Dead, the remake. Part of me was a little disappointed in that because I would have really liked to have seen what the movie would have been like originally as like the follow-up to his Dawn of the Dead remake that it was meant to be. So part of me is a little disappointed in that. But at the same time, the movie looks really good for what it is. Or the movie looks really good in general, I mean. So it still makes me excited for it. So even as a standalone now, not connected to his Dawn remake, it still looks really enjoyable. Of course, we got Wonder Woman about to show up and kill all these terrorists and take them all out, which is a very fun action scene. It just shows you like a lot of the footage that's in this cut is actually in the Joss Whedon version, but because there's so much like connective tissue and things like that added back in, and so many things are like changed around and just edited different to give the film just such a different vibe that it makes a lot of things just like play way more impactfully in the movie in the context of it. So it just works a lot smoother and better in the movie itself than it did in the theatrical cut. You just feel a lot more like rage and impact action-wise here in this scene, where it just felt more like a fluff throwaway scene in the theatrical cut, the Whedon cut, Whedon League or Justice League, whatever you want to call it. This kind of reminds me of like a Die Hard movie, really. This scene does with the terrorists and everything. Makes me feel like I'm watching Die Hard. Oh, there comes Wonder Woman. I always like the special effect look of Wonder Woman's lasso in live action in these movies. I don't know. I just really like the look. I really liked it in Batman vs Superman as well because of like the dark color scheme of that movie when she used the lasso. I just really liked how bright it looked and stuff like that, and the color it brought to the picture or whatever, the cinematography of the movie. Just looked really cool in contrast with everything else. Like it just played really well. I'm interested to see what they do with Wonder Woman 3 because Patty Jenkins, I think it's like a 40% chance she'll be back for the next one because Wonder Woman 1984 was really dogpiled on and hated on by people. Personally, I've only seen it once. I didn't hate it like a lot of people did. I thought it was kind of meh, like kind of average, really, like an average, more corny superhero movie or whatever that really hasn't been made in that kind of way in a long time. And the plot was just really messy in that one. And Cheetah was wasted, and when she was on screen, her CGI looked really bad. I really don't know why she decided to make the plot based around like this whole wishing stone thing and all that. It should have been, I mean, maybe you could have had the wishing stone thing in there as like a plot device, but it really should have been based around the Cheetah character and all that. But I guess what it was is she was trying to do something totally different from the first movie and do like more of a what you wouldn't expect type movie. And sometimes that can work, but a lot of other times it just doesn't because it feels like you're just going against the expectations of what we should be getting or what we really want, just to say, well, I went against expectations, so you should like this just because it's not what you expected, so it makes it good. So it's not what you thought you would be getting. And no, it doesn't really work that way. Like from 1 to 4 stars, I gave Wonder Woman 2. Or whatever, like a 2.5, a low 2.5. I thought it was just kind of meh, average. It's not something I would watch again, unless I was having like a DC EU marathon or whatever. But yeah, because that movie was dogpiled on so much, I'm not really sure if Patty Jenkins actually will come back for another one. I know they announced like they're going to do a Wonder Woman 3 and all that, but I really think they just kind of threw that out there just because they were kind of trying to fight against the negativity that was going against Wonder Woman 1984. So I really don't know. We haven't really heard anything about it since then. I really don't know if Patty Jenkins is actually going to bother to come back. She might just stay on as like a producer and name-only credit. That happens a lot of times with these big franchises when the directors don't want to return. Really cool scene here where she stops all the bullets to save the hostages. Gal Gadot or Gal Gadot, whatever, is not the greatest actress. I wouldn't even say she's a good actress, to be honest. But she works really well as Wonder Woman. But to be honest, when it comes to like superhero roles, like you really most of them, you don't really have to be a great actor. You just kind of have to have like a specific screen presence that works on screen for the particular superhero type character that you're trying to convey. Like, because of like the feel of most superhero movies, stuff like that, being more light and fluffy and just fun like popcorn flicks, you don't really need like a lot of levels to the acting to really display a lot of depth for the character. And that's one of the reasons that a lot of actors, or more character type actors like Joaquin Phoenix and stuff like that, don't really like superhero movies or want to do them. Like, the only reason he signed up to do the Joker movie is because the director told him it wouldn't be like a standard regular superhero movie. It would be a real movie, pretty much, or in his words. So that's the reason he signed up to do that, because he doesn't really like these like popcorn franchise things and stuff like that. And that's really why you're, despite rumors and what Joaquin Phoenix has joked around about saying coming back for a sequel, that's most likely the reason why you're never going to get another Joker like sequel with him, because he really doesn't want to be tied down in like some kind of wannabe superhero franchise. What attracted him to like that Joker movie was really doing a one-off thing that wasn't connected to a universe and things like that, and just doing like more of a character growth and study type movie. Like, he really isn't interested in like the whole Joker fighting Batman thing and all that. He doesn't care about that kind of stuff. And I get that, you know, he wants to be like an actor who relies on like character and things and all that, and more in-depth like scripts and things and character growth and all that, instead of just like big franchise fights with CGI and all that. I get it. That's what most superhero films are, and that's fine. They're enjoyable for what they are. I really like comic book movies, and comic books in general is one of my favorite things. I'm not trying to like talk down to them or anything, but that is what like 90% of comic book movies are. We got him coming in here. The mother box is activating. Steppenwolf is about to emerge. Connie Nielsen, who plays Wonder Woman's mother, is pretty hot for an older woman. She looks pretty good. I believe it's Connie Nielsen. I'll say this, like, I like the idea of what Warner Brothers is wanting to do with like a whole multiverse thing, to do all these different like versions of the characters and things like that, and all these kind of multiverse realms and different Earths and all that. That's a cool idea. That can work, but I get afraid of like what Warner Brothers hasn't shown in the time that it's owned DC, even back in the day with like the Tim Burton Batman stuff. They usually just luck out when it comes to DC movies because they happen to hire a director who is good and has a good vision for the material. Usually Warner Brothers like ideas and directions, stuff like that it tries to throw in for the DC movies just does not work. Like Batman and Robin, good gosh, that's awful. Superman 3 and 4, awful. So Warner Brothers does not have a good track record trustworthy wise with DC. So that makes me really worried about them trying to handle like a multiverse thing and all that. That really makes me nervous. Like, the idea of the multiverse thing, of like having different versions of Batman, different universes of Superman and all that, that could be really cool. But that, like, what they should do is finish off like the Zack Snyder Justice League trilogy, do the 2 and 3, and do like a Ben Affleck Batman thing as like a mini-series or whatever. Maybe even do the Justice League thing as like a one-off miniseries. Take 2 and 3, the plots, combine them together, do them as like an HBO streaming thing. That could easily work. And then you do the multiverse thing. Make that like the big, like phase 2 of the DCU. Like the next big thing. And you could like build up all these different versions of the characters from different universes and eventually like have them cross over. Like have Robert Pattinson's Batman, Ben Affleck's Batman, Michael Keaton's Batman, all of them just like cross over into like one big epic movie with all the different versions of the characters fighting like the Anti-Monitor or something from the comics. That would be really cool. But I don't feel like Warner Brothers has the intelligence to pull that idea off. Like, I feel like what they're going to do is just use like the multiverse thing as an excuse to get away from all the built DCU stuff that they got that was somewhat slightly controversial for the time when it was out, and just get away from it and do alternate versions of the characters with different actors because they can't get other actors back, or they don't want to get them back because their versions of the characters that they had were somewhat controversial, even though they could easily fix them in sequels. So they just want to throw it away, do totally new versions of the characters that may or may not work with audiences as well. And they just want to take that chance. And I think that's what the multiverse is just going to be. I don't think there's ever going to be some kind of like grand connection or big spanning arc or whatever movie, like a new Justice League reboot where all these new versions come together or something. I don't think Warner Brothers is that intelligent. Plus, I don't think most of the actors will really want to do that. I don't really see Robert Pattinson wanting to do like a big multiverse movie crossover Justice League film where he comes in as a version of Batman. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he would. Maybe he doesn't now, but he would change his mind later. And maybe I'm wrong, and he does. He is interested in something like that. I don't know, but it really doesn't feel like it. Like him and Matt Reeves really care about that. And another thing is, they haven't really developed the versions of the characters that they have yet well enough or enough to just jump off and do all these other different versions. Like, I think the Robert Pattinson The Batman movie in the trailer looks good. It looks really enjoyable. And I'm sure the movie will be good. I love Batman. I will always be there for another Batman movie. Like Wilkins said, though, I'm not going to pay for it because it's part of the DCU now, because it's a multiverse, so I'm not going to pay to see it in theaters. But I do think the movie will be enjoyable. And I think it'll be good. But at the same time, what I'm saying is they really haven't fully developed Ben Affleck's Batman yet. They should really be developing his relationship with Jared Leto's Joker and all that. That should be focused on right now. They shouldn't have jumped to just like doing another solo Batman. And I get why they did it, because Ben Affleck was going through a lot of aggravation and stuff like that, and he didn't really want to come back as Batman again at the time. So they just decided, well, we'll just do this new thing. But at the same time, big part of the reason why he felt like that is because of their treatment of Zack Snyder and his movies and the DCU in general. Like 50% of the reason he didn't want to do it is because of them. So it's like, yeah, it's your own fault. Really cool action scenes. Some people think like the Wonder Woman theme in this is kind of overused. I've heard like not many people, but I've heard like one or two kind of state that like on Twitter or whatever. I don't really feel like that. I thought the theme was badass. The score here, I believe, by Junkie XL is great. Way better than the Danny Elfman score in the theatrical cut. And I'm a much bigger like Danny Elfman fan than I am of like Junkie XL. But their score here is awesome and is way better than the score for Danny Elfman in Justice League theatrical cut. And I like Danny Elfman. I love his Batman score for Tim Burton's Batman movies. Yeah, really cool action. I like that. Everybody's like, oh, the Amazons are gone, Steppenwolf's gone, and he just jumps right back up. Could be wrong, but the guy's name who plays Steppenwolf and voices him, I'm not sure if he did the mocap for him. I think it's Syrian Haynes or something like that. I know he played like the devil in Ghost Rider 2, which is like a guilty pleasure for me. Spirit of Vengeance is so bad it's good, and just like a dumb B-movie grindhouse way. He does a really good job here. His character is, of course, most people have stated already, he's much better developed in this cut, of course. Comes the Parademons. Another thing that's really disappointing about like the Robert Pattinson Batman movie, like once again, nothing against the movie. I think it looks like it's going to be great. Which it may suck. I don't know. I haven't seen the movie yet, but it looks really good. And Matt Reeves is a good enough director to where I can give him the benefit of the doubt. But yeah, one of the other things about it is like it's a young Batman yet again. Yes, it's in more of like a Seven, like Nolan slightly somewhat world, but it's done more like a movie like Seven, where it's like a detective story and all that, and Riddler's kind of like a serial killer or whatever. Yeah, that's kind of cool. But once again, it's like a young Batman again, like Batman Begins and all that. We're seeing young Batman again. We already kind of got that. Like, what made the Ben Affleck Batman like feel so special and cool and unique was the fact that he's like an older Batman. Now we're just like jumping back to young Batman again. It's like, well, I'm a little disappointed in that. But I still think the movie's going to work well. I think Robert Pattinson looks like he's doing a good job in the trailer. Heard some people call him like emo Batman, which is pretty funny to me because he is kind of Batman's always kind of been emo. I guess they're kind of making jokes about his look or whatever, but that was really only because he had the eye makeup on. But the eye makeup thing is really only like because Batman obviously has always worn eye makeup in the movies, so it's just kind of a neat thing that they actually acknowledge it in live action finally. Playing keep away with the mother box. Sorry about that. Had a cough. Yeah, just the tone of this cut, this Zack Snyder Justice League cut, just makes it so much more enjoyable action-wise and everything. It's just a lot more cool and a lot more fun. I think we might almost be done with Chapter 1. I could be wrong. Yeah, I think we're almost done with Chapter 1. This is kind of fun, though, like the idea of splitting this commentary up into like different chapters, like Part 1, Part 2, whatever. This is kind of fun now that I think about it. I'm just kind of having fun doing this, like doing a Part 1 commentary. I like how Steppenwolf catches the arrow in this one. I believe in the theatrical cut, he just kind of knocks it away. Here, he like catches it and breaks it. I kind of like that better. That's a little cooler, and it works better here because this Steppenwolf's like way more badass than the theatrical cut Steppenwolf. Here comes the big army. Kind of reminds me of like Zack Snyder's 300 a little bit. I think some other people have pointed that out, but yeah, watching this now, it really does remind me of like 300, except like the chick version. That's another thing. I wish they would do like another 300 movie to kind of wrap that series up and make it a trilogy. I barely remember 300 Rise of an Empire or whatever I think it was. It was like a prequel and a sequel, but it kind of just like ended on a cliffhanger type thing. It didn't really get resolved. I really would like at least one more of those to wrap that series up, even if it was done for like streaming or something. That's something I would like to see. I think Eva Green was in that one. I believe she even got naked in it. And I remember her being like really hot in that movie. Well, we got a dead Amazon killed by a horse. Well, Steppenwolf, yeah, but it's pretty funny. She's got a big horse laying on her. Yeah, I love the colors and like the popping of the colors in this movie. This is probably visual-wise my favorite looking comic book film. Although I will say Tim Burton's like Batman Returns looks really beautiful in like a gothic way to me as well. But yeah, I love the color scheme here and all that. Thor Ragnarok with its colors is a pretty good looking one as well, but it doesn't compare to this Snyder cut to me. And I think part of that might be just like the cinematography, like the whole IMAX presentation of the movie, I think is just making the colors like pop even better and more. Oh, we're on part 2. There's subtitles for these, right? Yeah, the Age of Heroes. Well, thank you guys for watching or listening along with me if you've listened to this whole part 1 commentary, and I'll see you soon again with a part 2 commentary. So thank you for showing up if you did.